President Obama has gained few friends on Wall Street for calling bankers fat cats, but he may not be losing his deep-pocketed supporters that fast just yet. Hello, my name is Evelyn Risley. I'm a reporter with DealBook for the New York Times. Joining us today is Andrew Ross Sorkin. He's the editor of DealBook. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Good morning.
So in this week's column, you talked about how Wall Street is showing some reluctance to commit to Obama, but they may not be deserting him en masse yet, right?
Well, I think there's the conventional wisdom is somehow that Wall Street has completely turned its back on Obama, that they're not supporting him, they're not giving him money, they're not doing anything. Last week, there was a big dinner at Danielle, cost over $38,000, and they packed the room. So there's one element, which is there are people who are doing it publicly, but even more importantly, I think privately, despite all of the rhetoric, there's a sense that even though people aren't necessarily giving him money so publicly, and they don't necessarily want to be seen as supporting him, given what he's been saying, that privately they may ultimately turn around and vote for him.
Well, what about some of his previous backers like Lloyd Blankfein,
Right.
Jamie Dimon, who weren't at the dinner?
Right.
I
think that people looked at the dinner and said, where are the big names? What's going on here? In this environment, there's two issues. One is that many of the CEOs themselves, as I said before, don't want to be put in a position where they're looking like they're supporting somebody who's obviously coming down on their businesses in terms of financial reform and everything else. The other side, which is almost ironic, is that the campaign isn't actually pushing some of the biggest names to show up at these events, because the idea that Obama and Lloyd Blankfein are going to be in a photo spread together, as one banker said to me, isn't good for either of them. And so there's sort of another reality to the story.
But there is some tension between Wall Street and Obama, right? How do you read the polls today? Where would you say, Wall Street is, generally speaking? Are they happy with Obama?
I think they're privately okay with Obama.
Okay.
I think it's one thing to come out and say we support you at the same time that you're trying to push back on capital requirements and all of these other financial reform measures. It's another thing to say is, internally, I think they're saying it hasn't been nearly as bad as it might have been.
Yeah, and you mentioned that of the political candidates right now in the field, there's not too many that are kind of absorbing the support that Obama would have gotten, right? So how will this shake out in the next election cycle?
Well, look, Wall Street likes to make its bets and likes to hedge its bets.
Yeah.
So while we might not be seeing people jump into support people this early in the race, we're going to find out who the Republican candidate is. If it's Mitt Romney, I think that's somebody that Wall Street can ultimately live with. If it's Michelle Bachmann, I think that's actually going to be a much tougher sell, and you might see a lot more support for Obama. So ultimately, I think you're going to see a lot of money come into this campaign, and you're going to see people making multiple bets because, as they say in the business, they like to hedge their bets.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Once
Thank
again,
you.
my guest today has been Andrew Sorkin. He's the editor of DealBook. I'm Evelyn Risley with DealBook for the New York Times.